Hi, welcome to Conversations Matter with me, Heather Criswell. I wanted to share with you and hop on real quick to share with you an experience I just had shopping. I was in a Ross and in line, and I had clothes and some shoes to buy, and this lady behind me was with her daughter, and she just wasn't having it. I smiled at her, and she just was not having it. Then an older gentleman walked up behind her, and he started making conversation, and she wasn't having it with him either. And I started laughing because I was like, man, and the conversation he was having was not a very kind conversation. In like, if you just like thought about it, he was like telling this little girl that was like 11, like, you should be helping your mom, you should be cooking and cleaning because that's what girls do. And he's like, what use are you if you're not doing that? And I looked at the little girl and I looked at him and I smiled and I said, tell him it's 2019. And she says, it's 2019. I go to camp. And I started laughing, and we started laughing back and forth, and the mom was still just not having it. And I had this judgy moment of like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? Like telling this little girl. And I'm all about conversations matter. And here we are, like, you preach what you need to learn the most. So I'm like, okay, you've just got to sit this out and figure it out. And he started talking more, and then he started lightening up. And then he whips out these pictures out of his pocket, like it was staged, of him in the army and him on tanks. And he said, you know, I was promoted after the first year as the #1 sniper. I never missed a shot. And he was so incredibly proud of it and so incredibly proud of himself, and really just wanted to have a conversation. And he says, you know, my kids are like 57 and 65. And I looked at him, I said, how's that possible? And he says, and then the other mom was lightening up, and she goes, you must have had him young. And he said, no, I'm 85. And I was like, you're 85? Like, that's amazing. And I was like, everybody was dead by the time 85 rolled around in my family. And he started laughing. I was like, you're like a walking miracle to me. And he was just like, he looked like in his late 60s. But nonetheless, we were laughing and joking, and then that mom started laughing and joking. And what I realized is sometimes people don't know how to communicate, and so their approach really sucks. But if we give them just a tiny chance, just a chance to come out of their shell and really show us who they are. And then he was talking about his grandkids and his daughter and his son and how proud he was of them. And all I could think of was, I would have totally missed this conversation if I would have just stood in my stance of, what a jerk. So that was my remembering today of, take a deep breath, let the conversation unfold, and see if it's a good thing. And it may not be, but I'll tell you, I'm glad I waited it out. I'm glad I gave him a chance, because I think that there was a real moment of connection for all three of us in some way, shape, or form. And the conversation I was having with myself is, why isn't this cash register moving faster? Why do they only have one person? And when I finally released that, I knew in my heart that it was because this conversation had to take place. So everything is in divine order. We just have to take some deep breaths and trust and have faith that it's all working out. So I love you guys. And remember that give a conversation a chance. You never know. You might meet someone really cool. All right. Love you guys. Remember, conversations matter, and conversations rooted in love change everything.